All right. Looks like we're seeing some more people keep coming in here.
So how we're gonna do it today, just as a little disclaimer, uh, we're gonna talk about the topics mentioned in the announcement first, and then we're gonna open up the floor for Q&A. So hopefully we can answer a lot of your questions beforehand, and then after that, whoever's remaining with questions unanswered with these related topics, we will open the floor to. All right.
That'll work.
All right. Why don't we get started?
All right. Do you want me to introduce myself? I
Yeah,
think.
go ahead.
Okay. Uh, I know some of you guys all know who I am. Maybe some from gym community, not so much. But my name's Kyle. I am a certified personal trainer, and I'm actually the owner and builder of Project Rain, which is the partner server of the gym community here. Um, and yeah,
We're happy to have you on today, Kyle, and looking forward to do more of these in the future. Today we're just going to be talking about cutting, bulking, supplementation, and also we're going to add in teen dieting and why that is not always a great idea. So let's get started. So to start things off, we're going to talk about how to lose weight in general, and then we're going to go into a little more specific. So you guys have probably heard the words BMR, TDEE. What do these mean? What are they? So BMR is basal metabolic rate. And what does that mean? Basically, if you were to lay in a bed for a whole day, do nothing except be fed calories, you would need that many calories to maintain your current body. So let's say, for example, myself, my BMR is about 1800. So I would need those 1800 calories to maintain basic human function. So then what is TDEE? Total daily energy expenditure. Now, this includes your BMR plus your activity and plus your body's energy used to digest food, also known as thermic effect. Now, if we look at this graphic on the right, this is an example of TDEE. You guys probably were sent the calculator a bunch. I'm always sending that thing because it's a great estimate on where you should kind of start. So, great example to maintain weight, also known as your maintenance. This was an example that we did yesterday with someone in the server, and we're looking at like 2,400-ish calories a day. So that just means that with their current body metrics and their current activity level, that's an estimate of how much they burn daily, and they would have to eat that much to maintain. So now we're going to talk about calorie deficits. Now I have this bottom one kind of, I tried to make a line, but that's the best I could do. So I have this one like crossed out because we're never going to recommend a deficit beyond 500 calories. The reason being, you start to lose muscle mass. And if you're losing muscle mass, what is the point of going to the gym and doing all this hard work? So we want to make sure that things are kind of on track. We don't want to fatigue you. There's something called diet fatigue. So when you diet too much, you kind of feel low energy, kind of get burnt out, almost like finals week at school. Your brain starts to get a little tired too. So that fatigue can be from the gym, muscular, or mental from the diet. So a great range is 500 calories or below. So mild weight loss, 0.25 kg, about half a pound a week. You're looking at about 250 deficit. And then for a pound a week, which is the upper limit, you're looking at 500 calories. And now I'll hand it over to Kyle for diet and nutrition. Kyle,
Yeah,
how important do you think diet and nutrition is when it comes to losing weight?
definitely, definitely really important. Um, diet, nutrition. Obviously, you still want to be in that deficit, but you also want to make sure that you're eating the right macronutrients or an adequate amount of macronutrients to maintain your muscle mass when you're of course losing weight. Um, it's and micronutrients too. Although I'm not too knowledgeable on the micronutrients to be honest, but the macronutrients is important, of course, and making sure that you have an adequate amount for that, of course. Yeah.
Now, what about
Um,
if, you know, let's say someone doesn't eat the best, maybe a lot of fast food. Do you think it's important to just increase activity to lose that weight? Or do you think they would have to make other changes?
Definitely other changes. I mean, obviously with fast food, you're looking at higher calorie food, so it's going to be higher in fat, higher in a lot of the things that you don't really necessarily want. And focusing on something like that, if you have something like that in your, consistently in your nutrition, I can almost guarantee it's going to be very difficult to lose weight. If that is your goal, it's going to be very difficult to lose weight because of how much higher in calorie it is and whatnot. And a lot of that fast food too is not. I mean, you're not going to see a good, decent amount of protein in it too. So, in my opinion, I would say that when it comes to diet and nutrition, uh, you should ideally focus on protein. That should be your primary macronutrient to focus on, and then kind of hit your fat goals, and of course go into maybe backfill your diet with carbohydrates, is what I would always recommend.
Couldn't agree more. And that fast food's not going to be as filling long term as if
Hmm.
prepared.
Right?
So,
Yeah, not nearly as
yeah.
satiating. Yeah, yeah.
Now, as for routines, we get this question a lot. What machine should I do for weight loss? What workout should I do for weight loss? So the weight loss is going to come from the intake versus activity. Now, as for the activity, it's completely up to you as an individual. We always harp on finding something that you enjoy doing. So a mix between weightlifting, whether your goal is to get stronger, build some muscle, or maintain that muscle. And as for cardio, really up to you. If you like running, you can incorporate running. I personally like disc golf. Little bursts of exertion mixed with a lot of walking makes cardio super easy. Everyone has their own choice, and we just want to harp on the fact that you should choose what you like to do the best. Sustainability is key.
Yeah, yeah, definitely with that. Sustainability is huge. That's why, and walking is such a great thing. I mean, you see, I mean, we're doing a walking challenge right between both of our servers now,
Yep.
and there's a reason why everybody talks about walking. Get them 7, 10,000 steps more if you need to. And it's because it's very easy to do, right? Everybody walks, and it also a big thing with it when it comes to sustainability, recovery, all of that is that walking will barely affect that, right?
Yeah.
Um,
Very low impact.
if at all. Yeah, very, very low impact on your recovery and everything. You're talking about looking into, you want to be in a deficit, you want to do hit training all the time to do that, or you want to run intensely or whatever it is more intensely. It's going to affect your recovery, and you're not going to be able to maintain that for a long time. That's why walking is a really, really great tool to be used when it comes to maintaining a deficit and then continuing through that deficit, even as you lose more weight. Um, you could always plateau or what have you, and walking is going to be a great tool to just keep maintaining that deficit. So,
Yep. Right on. Is Gatsu? Gatsu isn't here. So there is an upper limit to the walking. I know that Gatsu on occasion walks 50,000 steps. He just walks for like 8 hours. That one you might need a little break for a day or two. Your feet would definitely be sore. Probably other parts of your legs, maybe your lower lumbar. but for the most part, walking is the best form of low impact cardio you could have. But let's say you have all that under control. Now, how do you track your progress? And what if things aren't working out so much? How do we make adjustments? So, first thing is weighing yourself. Some people don't have the best relationship with the scale. You could go off of visual changes, but it might take longer to realize whether something's changing or not. A nice hearty meal with a lot of sodium could be pretty discouraging. So, as for tracking progress, weigh yourself at least 3 to 4 times a week, every day ideally. You want that to be in the morning, right after you wake up, before you consume anything. One, you're lightest in the morning, and two, you won't have any food or any excess fluids in your system. You'll kind of get a more realized weight. And from there, you can take your weekly average, because it's going to bounce up and down throughout the week. But there should be a trend going downwards as you progress forward. The first week when losing weight is going to be the most significant. Some people see 2, 3 kg or 4 to 6 pounds of weight loss. That's usually just water, not necessarily
Mhm.
fat. So from there, do you have any other tips on kind of tracking your progress or making adjustments, Kyle?
Yeah, so I was going to say, so with the reason why you're losing that water weight really is because for most people when they enter a deficit or when they're losing weight, kind of like I said with when you're looking at your macronutrients, you have your protein, your fat, and your carbohydrates. And protein really it should be the primary one that you should focus on. If you A lot of what I've been doing recently, and it's subjective to me, it may not work for everybody, but a lot of what I do is I try to focus on that protein earlier on throughout the day, and it makes it so much easier to kind of hit all the rest of my goals throughout that day. But if you focus on that protein and then your fat, and then when you're in that deficit, a lot of people will start cutting their carbohydrates back. And carbohydrates will actually, I think it's, correct me if I'm wrong, bro. I think it's, you know, I think the body holds on to maybe, is it 1 gram or so of water for every 3 to 4 grams or I'm sorry, 1 gram carbohydrate holds on to 3 to 4 grams of
Yeah, I believe that's
water.
correct. Yep.
I think that's, yeah, about right. So that's why you see a lot of people initially lose a lot of water weight or a lot of weight fast. First off, weight fast because of that water weight, right?
Yep.
Because they're cutting down those carbohydrates. So that's why. Um, and a lot of people do get discouraged when it comes to weight loss after that weight loss, that initial weight loss starts slowing down.
Yeah.
But something to remember is again, it's just a lot of it's going to be water weight at first.
Yep.
Um, when it comes to tracking overall, I think that what you're talking about with the weight, that's great. You know, looking at being consistent with that, weighing yourself in the morning specifically, that's when you're going to see more of an accurate uh, weigh in true to your body there. Um, and then of course again taking an average over a period of time is ideal. I think the biggest thing a lot of people will get locked up with the idea of doing something exactly like being super precise with something, and
Sure.
it doesn't really even necessarily need to be that. If weighing yourself in the morning is very hard for you, and you're having an issue with that, you forget about it all the time. Uh, but maybe weighing yourself at night is easier, and that's something that you can consistently do, then do that. If you can weigh yourself consistently at night, it's super easy for you to remember to do that. Do that. Weigh yourself consistently at night, and then just do the same thing. Take the average over that period of time because you have a measurement, and when you're in deficit, if you're in a surplus, whatever your goal is, you'll see that long term. You're going to see that projection long term, and if you see you're still moving to the direction towards your goal, regardless of when you're weighing yourself or how you're tracking, then you're doing the right thing. You're
Yep.
you're doing good.
Yep.
So that's important. If we're talking tracking when it comes to, you know, there's a lot of ways you can track your progress. Applications, a lot of, and even in both of our servers, we have different ways that you can track. The step challenge, whatever way you can track different things and different metrics in your life,
Yeah.
ideal. And the more information you have, the better off you're going to be.
Absolutely. And I see that someone in the chat said that they kind of hit a plateau after 20 kg. So another thing that's important, especially with long-term weight loss, this number up here, this 2400, this this goes off of a few things. It goes off of gender, height, and weight. So if you have a significant change in weight, that maintenance is going to drop. So it's important to readjust every 10 pounds or so, unless you're scaling your activity with your weight loss, which is kind of, I don't know, that seems like a lot. So you might want to readjust every 10 pounds or so because those calories are going to come down. And one more thing that we didn't touch on was the reason this is not a good idea is because our BMR we should never eat below our BMR. If we're eating below our BMR, there's going to be a couple different health implications and you're going to develop metabolic resistance. And it's going to be even more difficult to lose weight in addition to symptoms like feeling low energy, etc. So make sure that when you're losing weight, let's say this is our maintenance, we choose that 500 calories. If this is close or like right on our BMR, well, how can we get this number higher? We just have to be a little more active. So we talked about steps and whatnot. So walk an extra mile or two that day. This number will bump up to 2,000, 2,100. You'll be good to go.
I wanted to mention something too about
Yep.
tracking, real quick too. So Gerald messaged me about this actually. He said, something that we overlooked there is that like even taking progress pictures, if you're looking at keeping track of your in any way, progress pictures are insanely for that, being able to actually see your change, and not only in the way of like seeing your change and knowing that you're going in the right direction, but also as like a motivational factor. If you start working towards your goal again is to lose weight, whatever it is, and you see that you're actually making progress and your body is changing, that's going to really help keep you motivated to keep pushing through and keep moving towards your goal. Um, you can use measuring tapes. You can use again any tools that you can find basically to keep track of your different body metrics or whatever you're trying to track. So, but yeah, progress pictures are insanely good.
Yeah, they can be a really powerful tool, as you said. If because you see yourself in the mirror every day, you won't notice those
Mhm.
little changes, but you go to like a family gathering or you look back on those pictures and go, "Dang, maybe I did make a lot of progress." And you're
Mhm.
right, it is can be the little boost that you need halfway through a diet.
Right.
All right, bulking. When should I bulk? When should I cut? The age-old question. So, a couple things to consider. We do get this one a lot. We do have a guide on this. Kind of goes over the same points, but what's your current body composition and what are your current goals? Those are going to be the two biggest factors, and all these are going to depend on the individual. So, generally speaking, if you are too lean or you are too heavy, you have too high of a body fat percentage, something that you personally are uncomfortable with, then maybe you should start leaning in the other direction. Generally, people that are strength oriented tend to hold more body fat because if your body fat is higher, you are heavier, and you can, in fact, hold on to more muscle mass. Now, as for someone who wants to be more aesthetic, higher body fat might not be your best option because you have higher body fat, you're not revealing those muscles, and you're not going to be very aesthetic looking. So it's all going to come down to you as an individual. A good rule of thumb, generally, from an aesthetic standpoint, if you start to lose visible definition in your abs, you're probably approaching 16 to 18%, maybe even a little lower, and it might be time to start cutting back. The upper limit to that, if you have very developed abs, you start developing love handles. So, someone like myself personally, I get love handles before I lose definition of my abs. I don't know, bad fat sore genetics, I guess, but that is kind of my reminder. Hey, our bulk's approaching an end from an aesthetic standpoint. Now, if I'm in a strength-based program and I'm still progressing, keep on pushing forward. Now, Kyle, do you have anything to add on to that?
No, I was going to say something along the lines with the abs. If you may not see any abs at all, that might be a good time to cut. If you're looking at like not basing it off of exact fat percent or anything like that, and you're just basing it off of aesthetics, that may be an ideal time to cut. Um, you know, uh, it's hard to say because it can be quite. We were talking about it earlier. It can be a little subjective on when you want to cut or when you want to bulk. Um, yeah, it can be definitely a little subjective. A lot of people say, I think, what 8 to 12%, is ideal if you're looking at fat percent to start bulking back up, and then cutting maybe
Upper
around
teens.
closer, yeah, upper teens, maybe 20% or so. If you're 20%, you definitely want, I would say definitely want to cut, but somewhere, yeah, upper teens is what I would say, um, somewhere about there. But yeah,
I see towards here one of our other CPTs in the server, and he's more athletic based. Now, a lot of athletes can be leaner, but maybe he can type in chat if this is correct. Athletic performance can be better with a slightly higher body fat percentage, mid-teens. I would say if you're too lean, it's going to hinder performance. Same can go with strength. Um, if you're if you're too lean, you're just not going to be able to maintain the strength that you had when you were higher body fat percentage. It's just the way it is. And this slide is for people who have been training already. So they already went through a period of bulking or cutting. This is not intended for people that are just starting who may not have developed muscles to reveal. So if you are thin or skinny fat, which we'll get to next, and you don't have any muscle mass to reveal, a cut might not be the best initial option. So this slide is more for our late beginners. And now, what are the best times to bulk and cut? Oh, okay. So just if you look at chat, Tor just found it correct. Lower body fat, you can also increase injury likelihood. So at least in fields, good to know. And now, what are the best times to bulk and cut? This one is again subjective. We were talking about this earlier, like Kyle said. The classic cut for the summer, bulk for the winter. And there are a lot of factors that we either intentionally play into or unintentionally play into. Generally speaking, probably easier to cut in summer, early spring. The weather's beautiful, nice to go outside, easy to walk, easy to get out there. Daylight's longer, have more time in your day. And during the winter, the sun's not out as much. It's cold, some days below freezing, depending where you're at, and you might not want to go out there, get those steps in. And it's a lot easier to put on weight in the winter because the less activity. Also, all those family holidays, at least here in the U.S., seems like we got a lot, a lot of eating around the winter as well.
what do you think? I was going to ask, what do you think the ideal amount of time for a bulk would be? Something like I was thinking maybe something like 6, 8 months or so, but of course subjective. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, you could absolutely give yourself enough runway, especially with a low calorie surplus.
Yeah,
So let's say
right.
you just went like 1 to 300, very lean, and you were at that 8 to 12% range that you mentioned. You could give yourself quite a bit of runway, 6 to 8 months. That is that is a really good bulk. Now, it's also going to depend on your progress, your programming. If you plateau at some point in your training and you're still gaining weight and increasing those calories, you might need program adjustments, or that's kind of a sign to say, okay, let's hit that maintenance phase for a little bit, and then we'll get into a cut.
Right. And not to make it any more complicated, but what do you think of mini cuts throughout a bulk, an extended bulk like that?
I think, again, it's going to come up to the individual. A lot of people are uncomfortable with, I don't want to say getting fat, but a lot of people are uncomfortable with that big increase in body fat percentage,
Right.
losing those abs. I think mini cuts aren't as beneficial as if you did something like blocks of maintenance. So I mentioned this to you, Kyle, but I worked with a registered dietitian at my last job.
Hmm.
Also has a doctorate in nutrition, and he always has his clients do 3 to 5 days of maintenance on their weight loss journeys and weight gain journeys, because he finds more sustainable results. That all comes back to that
Right.
diet fatigue aspect.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, for sure.
and bulking is definitely a chore for some people. I see people on the server, they're eating like 4,500 calories. That's that's their surplus, and it's
It's a lot of calories.
it is. And if they're clean calories, that's going to be like an all-day eating event every day. So it could be just as draining as if you had a hard cut.
Right. No, no, completely agree. I've definitely been there, both with training and diet. So
Kind of answered the next one with that, with afraid of losing muscles. How do I cut properly? Again, deficit of less than 500, low and steady. If you're feeling that diet fatigue, periods of maintenance, meaning you pump those calories back up, just lift normal, sleep normal, everything's normal except you're adjusting those calories, and keep that activity up. See that Gerald mentioned vitamin D. Very true as well. Vitamin D plays a big role. Anything you wanted to add on this side, Kyle?
no, I think pretty good there. Yeah.
All right, so we also get a lot of individuals like this, skinny fat. So a good visual representation is low muscle mass, higher body fat in the torso, so skinnier limbs, and then higher fat storage in the chest, the abdominals. So not a lot of muscle definition. Um, so where should someone go if they are skinny fat, Kyle?
I think it can still be a little subjective. You'd want more data, like you know, how's the body composition overall. But for most people, and even for myself, because I was there, I was skinny fat, and what I did for myself personally was I was in a deficit, and what happened throughout that deficit, it was maybe three. I was telling you about it earlier, probably, but for about the first 3 months, I made a solid amount of progress, and my body recomped. And what that means is basically you're going to be losing that fat and gaining muscle or putting muscle mass on simultaneously. So I think for a lot of people that are skinny fat, that might be ideal, is to be in a slight deficit, uh, and and generally your body, especially if you have never really lifted before. I mean, even if you've lifted before, I would say, and maybe it's been a while, uh, that your body is going to recomp. You're going to build that muscle mass and lose fat simultaneously for a period of time. Um, that's what I would probably say would be the best way. I know you had mentioned earlier, if you're, I think you're saying something along the lines of being a lot more skinny, right? And then you'd want to bulk, but yeah, that's my opinion. I just based off of what happened with me, and yeah, I was slight deficit. I recomped for a period of time, and just look, you can tell your body composition just changes, and yeah, so that's what I would say. But
Yeah, and it's along the same lines of what to do previous slides. So you got to find that maintenance, get your calories in order. And as Kyle said, you could either do uh, like a slight deficit, slight surplus, and your body will. The body's a beautiful thing. It adjusts and adapts like nothing else. So if you
Hmm.
start resistance training and being more active, guess what? Your body's going to adjust, become more efficient at those things, and one of those things to become more efficient, building muscle mass, increasing endurance, lowering body fat. So
Yeah.
just make sure you go slow and steady. Don't only trust the process, but enjoy it. A lot of people want the results quick. It's all part of the journey, man. So down the line, you'll be able to look back, look at all the work you've done, see how far you've came. Hopefully, you get a little smile from that. But Cooler
Yeah.
Human said, if I'm building muscle, I bulk and cut. If if you could explain that a little more, Cooler Human, we'll loop back to that. Just be a little
I
more
was,
clear in what you're asking.
yeah. I was
Do you
going
have?
to say something
Yeah, go ahead.
with the so skinny fat too. A lot of I would say I'd have to look into the data on this too, but it seems that a lot of people that are skinny fat, what you'll see is that just obviously they're not doing any form of resistance training. That's a big one. But a lot of them, I would believe at least, tend to eat, and maybe you know a bit more about this probably, but I believe that many of them, when it comes to their diet, they're generally not eating enough protein. So they're not eating enough protein first off, and they're going to be eating typically a higher fat, higher carbohydrate diet. And
Yep.
and a lot of time, I think that that's what kind of leads you down that path. I mean, it's a bunch of variables, like I said, no resistance training, no form of that,
Yep.
and then of course that diet model that people typically follow, and that's what's kind of leading you down that path towards being skinny fat. So diet wise is quite important, like that macronutrient breakdown, making sure you're eating somewhere around a gram of protein per pound uh, weight is ideal. Although although I think this can be a little bit more subjective when you're a higher fat percent. Would you say, Brawley, something like if you're quite overweight, for example, you may not necessarily need 1 gram of protein per pound entirely of weight, right? I mean,
Yeah,
it's
I believe the
low.
minimum to still put on muscle is 0.72 grams per pound, at least
Right.
according to the latest literature. You can just
Yeah.
round that to zero point 0.7. But and also generally speaking, when you're eating at maintenance or close to it and or surplus, carbohydrates are uh, they're protein sparing, meaning that if you just let's say you just had like a handful of cereal or a slice of bread, there are amino acids in there, and carbohydrates can be protein sparing, meaning you won't
Mm.
face any atrophy, muscle degeneration if you ate a lot of carbohydrates. So everything has a little bit of structure, and your body uses it to its potential. But I agree. If you have a higher fat build, especially in the abdominal and the chest, cleaning up the diet, even above activity, is probably going to be your best friend.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. Especially a lot of snacks, a lot of if you can just, I mean, for a lot of people that are not doing so hot or so good when it comes to their diet is like some of the recommendations I would say is something like getting rid of liquid calories. That's a
Yep.
big one.
Oh, huge.
Uh, Snacking, like in like incessant snacking, if you're snacking quite often, like getting rid of that.
Yep.
Um, I know I was. I'll have to share it with you probably later, but there was a video that I was listening to earlier about uh, those typically that and this is not something I know too much about, but like when you're snacking consistently, your insulin spikes, and that makes it harder for you to lose fat.
Sure. You build
I don't know if
resistance over
that's
time.
yeah, right, yeah, exactly. So that's one thing, cutting out the snacking. Uh, Especially bad choices for snacks. Maybe try to, if you're going to snack, maybe try to do something that's a little bit higher in protein. Try to consume something like 20 to 30 grams of protein per meal, right?
Yep.
Um, Somewhere around there.
Yeah.
I don't think there's an upper limit really for that either. So, uh, but
Very hard to
that
reach
that
it.
yeah, yeah, exactly, yeah. So, um, I forgot my last point, but yeah, just like focusing on a lot of that stuff is definitely helpful, of course.
Alright, so we had two questions, one from Zen, one from Polar Human. For Zen, does cardio kill gains like playing basketball while lifting? So if we go back real quick, so if you play basketball or do some heavy cardio, this number right here is going to increase. This includes your activity. So if you play a bunch of basketball, your TD is going to go up, at least for that day, and you're going to have to eat more calories. So where the myth comes in, does cardio kill gains? If you do excessive cardio and don't eat enough, you will lose muscle. Talking
Hmm.
like you got to do a lot of cardio. Um, but if you're eating right, if you're eating enough, you don't have to worry about going to play basketball and lifting. I've trained clients who were athletes. One particular, he was on both two soccer travel teams and two travel basketball teams. In addition to lifting, lots of lots of calories being burned, and he wound up putting on muscle, about 30 pounds of it, and it kind of leads into Cooler Humans question. Will I build muscle with only eating the calories needed to maintain my body, or should I bulk cut, bulk cut? So that's entirely up to you as the individual. There, at least in the beginning, you can see a gain in muscle mass, even in a deficit. So when you're initially starting out, that first year is your golden year. You're going to get a lot of results, almost regardless what you do, because your body's adapting so well. In your later years, you can either opt in for a bulk cut cycle. They do have diminishing returns over years. So, going to a quick sidebar, your first year of lifting, you can gain at the upper limit 25 to 30 pounds of lean tissue. Now, that has a lot of variables in play, but we're just going to use 30 as an example. Every year following, you're going to gain about half as much as the year before. So, let's say you gain 30 pounds that first year. Your year 1 to 2, you're looking at about 15. Year 3 to 4, you're looking at about 7.5. Year 4 to 5, I might have skipped one. You're looking at like 3.625 or whatever it is. So it'll be harder to gain more muscle over those years. So bulking and cutting is pretty optimal in the beginning, I would say. But as you become a more advanced lifter, that fat gain is not really worth the amount of muscle gain.
Hmm.
So if you are gaining currently, eating close to maintenance, keep doing what you're doing. If you could go into a slight surplus, you might yield more results. To wrap up that answer. Anything
Hmm.
to add for either of those?
Yeah, Zen's question actually made me think of something. So does cardio kill gains? I think definitely, of course. But the really, the big thing with cardio, right, especially with new lifters, is what a lot of new lifters will want to do. I'm sorry, not even lifters per se, but a lot of people that want to start losing weight or start making changes to their body, um, they will think that cardio is the primary way to get that done, right? To lose weight, and it can be good. It can definitely be good, obviously, to lose weight. When it comes to losing weight, you're in a calorie deficit. So whatever you're doing that puts you in a calorie deficit, that's how you're losing that weight. But what happens is if you primarily do cardio, you are not and not doing any resistance training, you're going to lose that weight, but you're not going to build any more muscle mass. You're really not going to build any muscle mass, anything like that. Your BMR, that basal metabolic rate, will not. The more muscle mass you have, the higher that's going to be, which is beneficial. But what's going to happen is if you step off from doing the cardio, let's say you're doing cardio for 3 months, you lose a large amount of weight, you have made a change, you're happy, and you start losing that, you lose some motivation, whatever, you step away from the gym, you're going to gain that weight back quite fast. Um, because you didn't build any more muscle mass. You're not increasing your BMR, your basal metabolic rate, and I don't know if that makes sense. Does that make sense, Brawley? I know a lot of
It
people kind of
does.
fall into that trap. I've had so many people that I've talked to and have asked for advice outside of Discord, friends, family, and all the time. And even when I first started going back to the gym, that was my thing. I want to go on the treadmill as soon as I got to the gym, and that's pretty much all I wanted to do. You know, um, without realizing that that's what would happen is if I stepped off, I'm going to gain all that weight back, whatever it is.
Yeah.
It's just not an ideal approach. That's why resistance training is amazing, and then of course adding in the cardio, running, whatever it is that you want to do after the fact a little bit. So
Yeah, right on. Gerald, we will add you right at the end. At least if you have any questions, you can type in chat for now, but we'll invite speakers at the end. I'm gonna run through these next three fairly quickly. They are for it's just about the negative side effects with when it comes to cutting as a teen. I know that there's been a pretty heavy social media influence, at least, not only when it came to uh, like anabolics, but it also comes to cutting, bulking. Now, I don't have anything against any of the things I mentioned. I think they all have their place in uh, certain situations. But as for heavy cuts as a teen, in the past 2 days, I I think we've gotten 3 or 4 people. Unfortunately, I don't see any of them in here, but they were cutting, eating 1,000, 1,300 calories total for the whole day as a like 13-year-old. Uh, that is going to have some pretty negative side effects, not only physically but also psychologically. So, just to go over some of them, hormonal crashes and body development. So this includes height. This includes going through puberty, uh, especially with girls. Girls that don't eat enough calories, they can have issues with menstruation, which can lead to a multitude of health problems down the line. And it's very hard to tell these kids no because they just want to improve, and I understand they want to kind of be a better version of themselves, but it's important to remember to also be a kid. You're still growing, still developing. The last thing that you want is to hinder your development and develop some sort of ED, eating disorder, uh, or not really reach your full potential and stunt your growth. So we always advise that you don't cut till, if you can, please wait till your late teens, ideally after you're an adult. If you just eat normally, be active, lift weights, you'll be okay. If you notice you're getting a little heavier, just be a little more active or try to eat a little less. But there's no need to be counting calories and having 1,000 calorie restrictions when you're 13, 14, 15. But going off of this one, just even more negative side effects, growth deceleration, which I mentioned, nutritional deficiencies, which could be iron and calcium, which both pose long and short term risks, your bone health. Didi Jarrett mentioned sports like wrestling. Now, wrestling has its place in the athletic world. I think wrestling is pretty badass, and it can be, you can get some really muscular, functional freaks out of that sport.
mm,
Always crazy to see.
yeah,
But the weight loss when it comes to wrestling and MMA sports, stuff like that. I mean, even powerlifting, right? I have a kid in the server that I know personally, 16, had to cut down to like 150 something for his meat, his powerlifting meat, and they can, have negative side effects on your health. It's Wrestling's even worse because the weight restrictions are super severe, and they are it's a constant up and down. So you'll have a bunch of meets that you have to meet weight. So again, all these things can lead or it can be caused from calorie deficits as a kid. We also didn't mention bone health, osteopenia and osteoporosis, meaning your bones become brittle. I know I was affected with this, like 15, 16 when I started. I was a fat kid and I wanted to lose weight, so I just kind of stopped eating. And then playing sports, bones were brittle, and I wound up breaking my back. So that's an extreme case, but and it's only one population, but it can happen. Your body is a miracle worker when it comes to adaptation, but if you don't give it what it needs to adapt, then you're going to have potential health implications down the line. So, what can you do as a teen instead of severe calorie restriction? If you're obese, that is one case where cutting should only be considered, and you should definitely go see a doctor or a dietitian about said weight loss. Calorie deficits. So we mentioned we don't want anything extreme. Move more. Don't restrict yourself from calories. The famous saying, move more, eat more. So as long as you're being active, we had Zen talk about playing basketball, lifting weights. If you're playing basketball in the summer, lifting weights, you go home and you eat. It's going to be really hard to, you know, not be in better shape than if you were just, sitting home playing Fortnite or whatnot. It's okay to do that, but we want to make sure we have a balance. So get out there and move. And if you see your body changing in a negative way, just try to move a little more. Now, I kind of sped through that. Were there any questions about that particularly? Or anything you want to add, Kyle? It's kind of
No,
all
I
over the
think that's
place.
yeah, it is a little bit, but that's ideal. I mean, as a young person, I mean, I think trying to focus on an extreme isn't the best. So if you're trying to lose weight, gain weight, I mean, just focusing on extreme goals like that. Maybe not extreme goals, but you're a teen, you're young. You know what I mean? It really should be about you just kind of maintaining things and just kind of growing, right? Um, make sure you're eating reasonable foods as best as you can. I know, obviously, as a teen, and living still with your parents, obviously, it's going to be hard to, uh, make sure you're eating the right things all of the time. But just
Yeah.
making sure you have an adequate amount of food, giving yourself the energy and everything that you need to kind of grow, right, is important. Um, I think learning is probably the best thing that you can do. Like the actual education when you're young, doing some reading, whatever it is that you can do, or learning from mentors, and that's why sports and whatnot are so great. Is you're learning, uh, you know, and I mean wrestling. I'm sure I don't know too much about wrestling, but from uh, something that I see is a lot of like Gerald's one man, but I know a lot of wrestlers at my gym too, and it seems like a lot of wrestlers tend to be really great lifters too. So
Yeah.
there's got to be something with that. But like,
It's all that functional
you're just
strength,
learning.
man.
Yeah, it is. It's got to be. Um, but I think like really important when you're young is just to learn, man. Just educate anything, learn anything that you can. Nutrition, learn about macronutrients, and don't go too hard on everything. Don't be too hard on yourself throughout any of these processes because you're still really young and you're still learning. But I think that's really important. Just educate yourself the best you can, and look to mentors and look to people that are knowledgeable and all that, and build up a really good foundation for all of that. And when you get older, man, you're going to be crushing it, just absolutely crushing it.
Yeah.
You know.
Dude, I know I admire a lot of the kids in the server that I mean, even starting at 16, 13,
Right. Yeah.
it's really nice to see that they're taking consideration and wanting to be a little better than they were yesterday. I didn't start until I was 19, so I was a late bloomer.
Yeah.
But and going back to the wrestling thing, I think that wrestling is probably one of the better sports to get into in a sense of like what you get out of it.
Like overall athletic
Yeah,
performance.
athletic performance. I think another one would be track. If you're
Mm.
looking, from who is jacked, wrestling and like sprinting, pole vaulting,
Hmm.
those are both great ones as well. But going back to the weight thing, I think that instead of I don't know the logistics of it with a coach, but I think one healthy adaptation you could have, at least in middle school and high school, would be to accept the weight class that you're currently in, not try and cut down. Uh,
Mm.
at least as a teen, you know, that's gonna be hard to do, especially if you have a coach that disagrees. All right, so for our last one, uh, supplementation. We get a lot of questions, especially about creatine. Do we want to start with creatine?
Yeah, we could start. Creatine would be a killer one to start with, I think.
So we, I don't know where this is coming from, but we're getting, will my hair fall out? Or people saying that creatine causes hair loss. Now I have a link below. Um, it is a study that was conducted with world-renowned researchers, debunked 12 of the most common creatine myths. One of them being, will my hair fall out? Does creatine cause hair loss? If you just follow the instructions, take creatine as advised, 3 to 5 grams a day, with an optional loading phase, your hair will not fall out. Now, if you are genetically predisposed to thinning hair or hair loss, I can't guarantee that your hair won't fall out, but I can guarantee that the creatine is not the reason. Now, it goes into a laundry list of, can you take it as a teen? Yes. Safe for teens to also take. It is safe for women to take. That was also mentioned in there. Will it cause kidney problems? No, will not cause kidney, especially if you're staying well hydrated and you're following the instructions. So again, I'm harping on after a loading phase. If you just do 3 to 5 grams, you can take it indefinitely. You can cycle on and off of it. And if you guys need specifics on how creatine works specifically, the high level is it makes your body more efficient at producing energy. I can get into the details at a later date, but I want to make sure that we cover all of this. Cool, Kyle pop that in there. So you can either read through the whole thing, or you can kind of cycle down and, or sorry, you can go through the whole thing or scroll down and see the summary at the bottom. And just to answer Gatsu's question, what BMI can a natural male lifter get at 10 to 12%? It won't give you a BMI because that's going to be dependent on the individual, and it kind of BMI is not a good metric for lifters. But I will say in kg, at like 68 to 86 kg, it's going to be like the upper and lower limits generally for a intermediate to advanced lifter. So about 150 to 190 pounds. That's going to be 10 to 12%. So it also varies on your height pretty heavily. So hopefully you don't have a 150-pound 6'6" guy and a 150-pound 4'8" guy, like Mike Isertel. Just kidding. I think he's like 5'6".
Yeah.
He always makes that joke.
Big guy. He's a big guy though.
Anything to add to creatine, Kyle?
No, I mean, just the hair thing is one that we've been seeing a lot. It seems like it's sometimes we see it so much that I almost feel like it's a
True.
little bit of a trollish question now.
Oh,
You know
gotcha.
what I mean? Yeah. So yeah, I mean that's something that I didn't really know too much about. Brawley, of course, knew a lot more. So it's hard for me to answer at first, and then I just was reading through some of the stuff that we were pulling up, and yeah, I mean based on the science, there's nothing that would really, um, say that it has anything to do with that hair loss. It's going to, uh, you know, uh, increase your cognitive function, brain function. Um, there's there's almost I can't I off the top of my head I can't really think of any downside not to take creatine. If you're lifting and whatnot, I just can't really think of any downside uh, for creatine. Maybe financially, maybe that's the
Yep,
only thing I
that's
could
what I
think
was.
of. If you Yeah, if you can't really afford supplements like that, it's not even protein. I mean, if you really can't afford it, like it's not a make or break deal. Don't
Correct.
don't feel like even pre-work any of that. Like don't feel like you need it. There's a reason why they're called supplements because they're although creatine's a little bit. I mean, supplements you could say are a little
Well,
bit
you
different,
get
right?
that naturally in
Creatine.
food, just like any other vitamin.
Yeah,
So
yeah, I guess so, huh? And it's a little interesting because yeah, I think there's more to it all than that, even too. But yeah. I mean, if you can't really afford it, no big deal. It's not a make or break thing when it comes to weightlifting or training in general. It's just going to help increase or make your performance better overall. Um, and that's really what it comes down to. Aside from that, I don't really see any negatives not to take creatine.
I agree. Yeah, financially, and then there is a small percentage of population that is pretty unresponsive. That's the only other. I believe Clemens, more lemons. That guy, he he's a non-responder. It's an example that I only know
Yeah,
one person that is, but
yeah,
apparently the percentage is higher than that. Again, you won't know until you try. Um, Gerald, I'll wrap up with adaptogens. It's not on this list. Wrap up with that. So we're gonna go like reverse manga here, right to left, down to up. So BCAAs and EAAs. God. Uh, when should you take it? Who should take it? So unless you are vegan or prepping for a bodybuilding show, I do not see any other use case to take these. If you have a poor diet, I would recommend just cleaning up the diet instead of trying to supplement. But essentially, what these are branched chain amino acids and essential amino acids. All of these can be found in meat and then partially found in carbohydrates. You can create EAAs and complete proteins with combinations. So for vegetarians, something like rice and beans, right? Rice and beans has this very similar amino profile to something like beef. Different ratios, but you will hit every single amino acid that you need to build muscle and sustain your body. So the pros and cons. The pros are really only for someone who is a vegan who doesn't have access to a lot of either dairy products, meat products, uh, any sort of animal product. So you're going to be it's going to be really difficult to hit those amino markers. Outside of that, if you're not a vegan, if you're some bodybuilders take it when they're prepping because they can kind of drink it all day, minimize atrophy, and
mm,
they're on heavy calorie deficits. And also, even then, that's like pro level. I think we have bodybuilders here. So outside of that, I don't think anyone should really buy it. If you have anything to add on that,
yeah. Yeah, so that's something. Again, it's just for those BCAAs and whatnot. They're beneficial for the muscle growth, reducing the soreness, fatigue, all of that. Um, and with that, I mean, you're going to get a lot of that from your diet.
yep, hopefully.
Um, if you're, yeah, hopefully, ideally, like that's ideally, if you're eating a relatively balanced diet and focusing on protein and whatnot, you're probably going to. be okay. Um, I think a couple good scenarios maybe to take something like BCAs or either of that is maybe when you're cutting. If you're cutting, it's probably going to be better. You're going to be eating less, so that might be a scenario. Um, and then maybe let's say you're training in the morning fasted, I think. Um, if you're training in the morning fasted, that's might be an ideal time to take those as well.
Well, these will actually,
Otherwise,
sorry to interrupt,
yeah.
these will actually break your fast. They do have calories, because they're essentially like Lego bricks of protein. So if you take this fasted, you will be breaking your fast. Um,
Hmm.
I agree with what you said about the deficit, uh, but just to reiterate on that, you might be better off with
Yeah.
just taking a shake in that case, because you'll get more of
Yeah.
both. They do taste good, I will say. I
Yeah.
did buy
Yeah,
these
that
at the
does make
beginning.
sense. Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, for sure. If you're gonna break your fast as well, I guess it's about the conveniency of it too. You know what I mean?
It is super convenient. Yep.
Whatever's convenient to you in that way. If it's more convenient to do one or the other, or whatever it might be. I mean, do that.
Yeah.
So
No, but I believe one of our mods, he actively takes just because he likes the taste, you know. And I
right.
mean, sure, if you have flavored water or you have some of these, if your fast is really hard and on the way
Hmm.
home you sip on some of these or you make a meal, sure, no harm in that either.
Right.
But
Yeah.
I think the use cases are very low unless it's
Yeah.
all about
Yeah.
preference.
I I I personally I never take them. I don't think I ever really have.
I fell for the rich piano when I first got into lifting.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think
Not
every
going. I think
bodybuilder has a line of BCAAs.
right. Yeah, that makes sense.
Now, which one do you want to go to next?
What else we got? So we got BCAs, EAs, protein powders. I mean,
Sure.
yeah, protein powder. So I mean, yeah, go ahead.
You want me to lead off? All
Yeah,
right.
yeah, go ahead. I'll just.
Protein powder. Again, all these are non-essential. I just had essential versus non-essential because sometimes people think you need to have these. Protein powder, super convenient. That is the biggest thing
Mhm.
with it. A lot of people will either work long shifts or not like to eat a lot in the morning, or they have trouble getting all their protein in for the day. So this is a great way to either, I personally on my cuts only have a shake in the morning, unless I'm having a high activity day. Like before I go to work, I'll have a shake. That'll last me till lunch. That's I just do that to break my fast from sleeping and then make sure I get enough protein in there to that my body can I eat my next meal. So it's nice and light and it lets me eat bigger meals for both lunch, dinner, and sometimes second dinner. uh, Now, as for the cons, there aren't too many. The only one is price. Some of them are really expensive, uh, especially more popular ones. Uh, you, again, you don't need it. I think they have really cracked the code on the flavoring. Some of those flavors are crazy. I don't know which ones you've tried, Kyle, but we got this fruity pebble one over here, and it tastes like I'm drinking fruity pebble. Nuts.
Is that wild? Where'd you get it from?
I think ISO.
Okay.
It's actually fishes, and I just steal it sometimes. What is it?
Oh, okay.
ISO pure.
Okay. Yeah.
My protein's fairly cheap. They have good flavors and whatnot, but this one is a little more expensive.
Hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. What other use cases do you have?
Yeah, conveniency. I mean, that's really what it comes down to is conveniency. Or if you have I mean, just generally, if you have a difficult time getting your protein intake in, um, that's really what it is. That's the idea of a supplement, right? That's,
Correct.
a supplement is to supplement your diet in some way, and that's what protein is used for. Um, I think two things. If you're maybe so like if you're cutting, right, it's very good to make sure you're hitting your protein goal when you're cutting because obviously you're eating reduced calories. It's going to make it a lot easier to hit that protein. Although if you're doing personally something that I do and maybe that I would really recommend is if you're doing a protein shake and your idea is to make sure that protein shake is the protein powder that you're using and maybe water or some type of other low calorie um, additives that
Yeah,
you're
I
adding
agree.
into that.
Like non-fat milk
Uh,
or almond
right, yeah, non-fat
if you really
almond
like that.
milk, something
Yeah.
like that.
Sure.
Yeah, exactly. So you're making that shake as lower calorie as possible, while keeping that protein higher because obviously because of the protein powder, right? Um, and then so that's one thing. Again, it just helps you kind of supplement that protein. If you're bulking, you could do the opposite, right? If your mission is to gain weight, you could always add whole milk, right, or something else, plus the protein powder and whatever else you need to add to it to increase the calories, oats, whatever it is that you need to increase calories, and that'll help
Yep.
you gain more weight, obviously, and make it easier to gain more weight while still hitting your protein intake. So supplementation, that's the primary, obviously, you know, thing behind it is to supplement that protein intake if you need to, or if you have a hard time getting protein in. Um, which to be honest, I don't know if this is for you, but I know I tend to see it's a lot easier for men to hit protein intake versus women. I don't know if that's something that you
Yeah.
see often.
I mean,
Yeah.
I don't think that fish always has a problem, but sometimes she has periods where she makes some dietary changes that
Hmm.
she will have trouble. That's where shakes come in pretty good.
Yeah. Yep. Definitely useful to have it on hand.
Yeah.
100%. Maybe not to eat it or take it every day, but just to be able to have it on a day that maybe you fell out of your diet for that day and you
Yep.
ate something you didn't and you didn't eat enough protein, whatever. But being able to have that choice to have protein powder is killer.
It is.
Can
It's nice to
definitely
have
help.
around. Yeah. And
Yeah.
even, I mean, to add one more thing, so uh, like sugar-free, fat-free Jello or pudding mix, it's really nice to make a really
Yeah.
protein-packed
Yeah.
snack. Throw a scoop of this in, and then two scoop or 2 cups of non-fat milk, and you're looking at like 50 grams. It's super easy late night snack, and it's only it's one plus. It's only like it's just under 400 calories, but you have a 4 serve.
Nice. Yeah.
So not many
That's a good
not
idea.
many cons except for financial, just like creatine. Super pro on convenience.
Uh, I will say this too. So Gerald actually messaged me about this as well, and he brought up a good point. Is when you're looking for any type of supplement, it's ideal that you're looking for third-party tested supplements. These are um, third-party tested. I don't know, like I know if I remember right, I think there's different. Um, I don't know, like entities that test the supplements, but third-party tested supplements are ideal because they're tested for quality and purity of what you're actually getting in that supplement. Um, so if you're looking for supplements, try to find a supplement brand that's third-party tested.
Yeah, and Fish just plugged a website in there, Labdoor. They basically do that exact thing. They go in and they test the quality. So you can actually, if you're
Yeah,
looking at a supplement, you can go in there and check it out.
sweet, that's cool.
Yeah, that's a big one too, because there are some brands out there that have heavy metals. Uh, that's not so good for
Right, right.
you.
Yeah, if you come across that stuff, don't even there's so many supplement brands out there
Yeah.
and good quality brands. And if you're coming across something that's a little bit cheaper, that sketchy, whatever it is, and isn't 30 party, don't waste your money.
Yep.
Don't waste your money on it. Just don't. You know.
Agreed. All right.
Yeah.
Last but not least, pre-workout. Now, this one has some caveats, especially when it comes to age. Who should take it? When? I I don't think that younger teens should be really ingesting that much caffeine. You can get non-stim, that's fine. If you're taking it as an older teen or young adult or regular adult, it's okay, but caffeine should be taken in moderation. You should never exceed 400 milligrams to your whole day. That's the upper limit. Some people are a lot more insensitive to caffeine, like myself. Uh, so ADD or the inattentive ADHD makes you very resistant to stimulants. Um, so like higher stim pre-workout does it for me, but something like a cup of coffee isn't a good supplement for myself. So it's all going to depend on the individual, but please avoid caffeine past 3 4 p.m. or else it's going to disrupt your sleep quality, and how long you're asleep. And if we know anything about lifting, those are some pretty important factors for recovery and building muscle. So you might get a better lift in, but then your recovery is going to suffer. It's double-edged sword.
Yeah, I think the a good rule of thumb is what, maybe about 6 hours prior to when you're sleeping to
Yeah,
avoid caffeine consumption.
yeah,
Um, so I know we have obviously a lot of people different, third you work third shift, whatever it is, night shift. You could probably, I would imagine that it's best to just kind of follow a 6 hour or so rule, 6 to 8 hours, whatever it might be. Don't consume any caffeine prior to that,
yep,
when you're going to be sleeping. So,
yeah. It's
but otherwise, yeah, yeah.
sorry, which is also
No,
adding
go
a
ahead.
half or caffeine half-life. So for someone like myself, right, I take closer to the upper limit when it comes to caffeine intake. Um, so I know personally that when I take a scoop of pre-workout, it takes about 28 hours to get it out of my system. Um, so if you're not careful, and let's say you work out the same time every day, you're gonna have a little bit of that caffeine overlapping, and it's gonna stay in your system longer, and you're gonna kind of have this upward trend until you have a lot of caffeine. So you either have to, if you're taking higher stim, cycle on and off, a non-stim. Don't take it every day, only the days that you really need it. Things like that. So
Yeah.
I hope that made sense without having a visual. You can kind of see what you put in, right? So if you had like a cup of coffee and a half, it would take about 37 hours to fully get out of your system. So it's pretty interesting in that respect. But they do have non-stimulant options to work out. Super expensive though.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Supplements are fun.
They are. And if, do you have anything to add to pre-workout? Otherwise, I'm going to answer Gerald's question, which had to do with adaptogens.
I mean, pre-workout, I think if you're going to use it um, optimally, I would say maybe really use it on days that you're going to be doing a lot more of your heavier lifting.
Yeah,
Um, compound days. If you're barbell squatting, deadlifting, whatever it is, maybe using caffeine for those days specifically, and then trying to, if you want to, in my opinion, if you want to keep your tolerance down as much as possible, don't use it on days that you're not doing that heavy lifting. Don't use it on a
yeah.
cardio specific day, or don't use it on something
Especially
like
not
that. I mean,
cardio.
just
Yeah.
yeah, especially because it's going to raise your heart rate and all that, and
Correct.
you're already doing that with your cardio. So it's just not. I mean, I'm sure I've done it before, but I just wouldn't recommend it anyway. I mean, just keep your tolerance down and use it for what it's meant to be. I wonder what I remember looking into it, but I know it has a certain percentage increase actually, based on some of those lifts too. Um, when you take pre-workout supposedly, uh, but I'd have to look. But yeah, anyway, just trying to really use it and get the most out of it on your heavier lift days rather than using it every day, right? Or an excessive amount. I think that's a big thing.
Well, it's funny you mentioned that. I definitely had a period in time where I abused caffeine. Uh, like when I had a way less healthy lifestyle. If I, I'm not recommending it, and I definitely don't, because it will lead to poor quality sleep. And if you abuse it for too long, you can develop heart issues. But I was taking upwards of like 700 milligrams a day, sometimes close to a gram, and
Yeah.
that's when you get in, not so healthy territory, for lack
Right.
of better
Yeah.
term. This stuff compounds, and I always talk about caffeine as borrowing the energy of tomorrow. So if you're constantly on it, you're going to be accumulating more and more fatigue until eventually one day you don't take it and it all comes crashing back. Uh, it's also a diuretic, so you might be a little more dehydrated, and if you're abusing it, not drinking enough water, commit
M- My thing about it being a diuretic too, though, is that I think if I remember right, you would, if you have, like, let's say a cup of coffee, for example, I think you would have to have, I mean, a lot of coffee for it to actually have any
correct.
meaningful dehydration effects on you. Um, so it is a diuretic. It's going to make you pee a lot more and whatnot, but I think the hydration that you're getting from it typically is going to really offset that anyway. So I don't know.
Well,
I have to look
in a
into
cup
it
of
again,
coffee
but
sense, absolutely. That's 90-ish milligrams, sometimes a little
yeah,
more
it's right
in
around there.
a
Yeah,
cup, so like 8 to 16 ounces. Now, if you have 16 ounces of water and you double scoop pre, you're now, 700
yeah,
milligrams. So you're condensing that diuretic into a way smaller
right.
volume. And if
Yeah,
your lifestyle at the time is not conducive to long-term health, then all these things can add up in a negative fashion.
yeah,
But
yeah.
a couple questions. So, Gatsu, possible to disturb my sleep if I take pre-workout in the morning. As I mentioned earlier, everyone has different sensitivities. They can be genetic, they can be based off of neurodivergency. So if you're super sensitive to caffeine and you take a full scoop of something like Bucked Up, which is close to 400 milligrams, it is possible, especially with that 150 milligram example that Fish showed. That was just 150 milligrams, and it takes about 37, 38 hours to fully get out of your system. So if you look at the middle of that curve, let's say you wake up at 10 a.m. or you go to the gym at 10 a.m. and then you go to bed at 10 p.m. At that 12-hour mark, it was only down to about 70, so just under half. So you would still have just about 200 milligrams of caffeine in your system before bed, and that's a rough estimate, but that's quite a bit. And I believe Nunu said stressing over getting it. Don't feel like hitting my protein intake. Yeah, don't stress over it as long as your diet's fairly in order. I believe this is about protein powder. Don't stress too much over the protein powder. Again, none of these are essential. They're all non-essential, but it's helpful for convenience sake. But again, you don't need to break the bank to get it. And corruption. I believe this is about creatine. Creatine helps your body make energy more efficiently, essentially, like the highest level. Sorry, I
Like
didn't say
a
that till now.
more basic explanation of it, right?
Yeah,
Yeah, for
one
sure.
sentence.
Right. Yeah.
It's easy for me to get carried away. You know how it is. Um, and from there, unless we have anything else, I wouldn't mind opening the floor for a couple minutes. We are a little over our. This was supposed to be an hour, but it's the first one. Uh, if you have a little bit of time, 12:30, we'll open the floor until. Is that cool, Kyle?
Yep. Yep. Absolutely.
Okay. So there's a little hand thing in the top right if you want to come and speak. Otherwise, you can just ask questions in the chat. I know. Oh, adaptogens. Sorry, Gerald. So what adaptogens are? They're like ashwagandha, ginseng, maca root, stuff like that. I don't think they're essential, just like anything else, but I think they can have really specific use cases and be beneficial for, sleep aid or, stress reduction. I don't think any of them will have super big impact on your hormones unless, let's say, you're chronically sleep deprived, then maybe some sort of natural sleep aid would, increase those hormone levels because you're reducing cortisol, all that stuff. You're getting full night's sleep. I don't think that they will hurt you, but you could receive marginal benefits or good benefits depending on your use case. I forgot he asked that.
Yeah, adaptogens. Yeah, I mean, if I'm right on this, I mean, aren't a lot of adaptogens used in supplements anyway? I mean, if you look at the
Yeah, sometimes.
breakdown, the ingredient
Hmm.
list of a lot of specific kind of supplements, you're going to see a lot of adaptogens generally used in a lot of these supplements. So you if you're taking supplements, yeah, chances are you're already taking adaptogens. Um, but
Yeah,
like anything else, I think maybe it depends on you individually and whether those are going to have certain effects on you or what have you as well.
yeah, and again, everyone responds to things a little different. Some people are more
Yeah,
genetically predisposed, some aren't. It's like that whole the whole terkestrone and ectestrone, right? It's
right.
just like anything else. Ashwagandha, that was pretty big a year or two ago. I don't know if people still take it too much.
I tried it, and it made me I don't know. I don't know if it was. I didn't take it very long, but it made me feel like acidic. I don't
Gotcha.
know if
Hmm.
that's the thing. Yeah, I only took it for a short period of time, though. I should have taken it longer, but I stopped because of that. Yeah.
And also another important thing to note that don't rely on these supplements to fix things. A lot of them can be fixed through diet, but it's important that you're supplementing, right? So as Kyle said before, therefore lack thereof, not full replacement. So just because you get protein powder doesn't mean you should protein. Same is said for sleep aids. Just because you get sleep aids doesn't mean you shouldn't, try to get to bed on time.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Uh, Corruption has that one, question there. Protein powder for breakfast, right? I mean, I think that's a good place to. That's usually what I would actually do if I did protein powder. I would take it in the morning just because I'm usually my mornings are really busy. So if like you're
Sure.
busy in the morning or whatever, I mean, again, it comes down to conveniency. Um, Being able to take protein powder in a busy situation is ideal. I mean, it's quick to do. Throw in a shaker, mix it up, and you're good to go. But it depends on how intricate you want to be with it. I mean, you can add a lot more ingredients to it if you need to, oats or anything like that, of course, or whatever it might be. Again, to make that meal more filling. Um, yeah, yeah, but I think it's a good scenario for breakfast or basically anytime you need something quick that's more protein infused.
Yeah, you actually made me think of a mass gainer. Got a couple of questions about that a couple weeks ago. I do not think anyone should really be taking mass gainer. It's a lot of garbage. It's an insane amount of carbohydrates to have in one sitting. Your best bet is to eat real food, space it out throughout your day. If you really need a lot of calories, you can do something like Kyle said and make your own real ingredients. You should never be buying a I got I can never say proprietary blend of
Hmm.
processed carbohydrates and a splash of whey protein.
Yeah, yeah, far better to just make your own. Yep.
Hours, parts, like 4 hours. You're gonna have to fix that slowly over time. Ashwagandha doesn't really fix your sleep. Generally for reduced stress.
Yeah.
Um, so something like uh, chamomile tea might be better. I don't know if that counts as an adaptogen, but some sort of, you know, sleep aid like that. You could also try melatonin. But your best bet is to reduce blue light, get into bed with no electronics. If you are really wide awake, you could read a book, but not on your phone. Magnesium does help with
I,
sleep. It also
yeah.
helps with muscle soreness. Just be careful not to overdo it, because overdoing magnesium over time can develop kidney stones. Learned that from my nutrition teacher. She was taking a bunch of magnesium to offset something. She was eating a lot of almonds.
Hmm.
She wound up getting kidney stones.
Oh, no kidding.
But yeah, you're gonna have to slowly adjust your sleep. If you're doing 2 4-hour blocks, you're not really getting a lot of deep sleep. Uh, Probably not hitting REM too long. Supplementation with sodium. I think unless you are an anti-condiment person or an anti-seasoner, it would be
Hmm.
pretty hard to not get enough sodium. Uh, Only use case really if you do something like Fish does. She does hot yoga, right? In a room that's baking for a long period of time, lots of sweat. So replenishing in that sense. Sodium's a big proponent. You got potassium, magnesium in there too. But strictly sodium, probably not, unless again you're sweating a lot, like athletes and whatnot. Yeah,
Yeah.
liquid IV, super dope.
Yeah. Liquid IV is killer.
There's another one, Element.
LMNT. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, that one.
Yeah, it's LMNT, but I think it's yeah pronounced element.
Yeah,
Yeah. That one's actually higher. If I'm remember right, I believe element is going to be higher in sodium than even your liquid IV. A lot of people kind of think so. Sports drinks like Prime, for example, you'll see a lot of sports drinks out that are higher in potassium versus sodium. And when you look at I can't remember the exact percentages generally that somebody's losing when they're sweating, but you're losing more sodium than anything else. I think it's sodium, potassium maybe after that, and then maybe magnesium percent wise.
yeah,
So that's why, in my opinion, if you're looking for a sports drink to, which I guess would be, I mean, kind of a supplement, right? I mean, in a way. Um, but a sports drink you should ideally look for something that's going to be higher in sodium versus potassium. So, and
yep,
Prime is one of those ones that is higher in potassium, like I said, versus sodium. LMNT or Element, Liquid IV. I know there's a good few other ones out there, but those are some of the prominent ones that are going to be higher in
yeah, the
sodium.
big dogs.
Yeah, yeah, yep. And they're both good, both good.
Yeah, I haven't tried LMNT yet. I'm with Tor on the team Liquid IV, but I
Mm,
did get an ad for it. And I thought about trying it.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, just as Fish said, we have a big tub of Gatorade powder. So that's the cheap option. And again, you shouldn't be really drinking Gatorade and whatnot if you're not sweating, because they do contain sugar. So if you're just sipping on Gatorade all day, you probably will, you'll be like, where the heck did all these calories come from? Why am I getting fat? That would be a, a big reason. The Gatorade in the UK is, they take the corn syrup out of it. Is that why, Tori?
Ha.
I saw that they took the corn syrup out of it here too. Uh, That's a whole other lecture.
Ideal.
Yeah. They get yeah, the poison sugar lecture.
Ha. You could link that video. That's a good one.
We have it. But if no one else has any questions, we're gonna wrap up for today. Let us know what you thought, either here or in all chat. That if you have the time to watch this, it is very long. It gets technical in the middle, but it will change your whole visual on like it'll just change the way you look at food forever. Really good. Fat loss and muscle gain and sleep. So sleep is one of the most important factors when it comes to recovery. That includes building muscle and losing fat. You'll lose majority of the fat you burn through sleep, and you will repair majority of the muscles that you tear down also through sleep. So that's why longer periods of sleep are best. If you're lifting and doing cardio, I mean, I'm guilty of this too, but you should be getting 9 to 10 hours. It is a lot of time. We all live actual life. Some of us have kids, most don't. Even then, it's you want to try and maximize that sleep, one long block if you can.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, thank you everyone for showing up today. I know we had people come in and out. Will the slides be available to you later? Yeah, I can. We both can post it. I have it recorded as well, but I think that when I click off the screen, it wasn't on Discord, so I'll have to kind of overlay it. All right. Thanks everyone. If you have follow-up questions, just make a post either here or in Project Rain, and we'll be in touch.
Yep. Thanks all. What's up, man? Nope. Can I hear you?
Yeah, sorry, I was talking to Fish for a second. We're running a little late.
1 second.
When you're on my phone. Oh, I did throw